Hey, beautiful people. I'm coming on today, trying to get out in a different environment as the weather gets somewhat better here where I am. My name is Crystal Turner. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner who's going holistic because I know to be whole is to be healed. And I want to talk today about how do you shift from going into that sunken place? Or how do you recognize the small little shifts within you that can actually take you into this sunken place of depression, of anxiety, of like low vibes? And how do you move through it, or what do you do when you notice those things happening? So I want to talk about this and preface it because it is really based on an experience that I had recently. When I woke up one day, I woke up feeling really good, and I don't know, many of you may be able to relate. I woke up feeling really good, a positive note, and before the day was over, I was feeling down. I was really feeling, it was such a difference in the way I woke up that morning that I definitely noticed it, and it made me want to, really think about what happened that contributed to that shift. And I think it's something for us to think about because nothing just happens. Everything is happening for a reason. Everything has a cause. And so even the things that are happening in us, most important, are coming from something. It has a place. Often when we're in pain and deep in our pain, it can be hard to recognize when things are happening or even notice shifts happening. We're just in this. You're just in it. And so I think it's important to really, in that process of studying yourself, studying ourselves, to start really paying attention to what is happening in those moments for you when you notice this shift. No one likes to feel the energy of sadness or the energy of anxiety, but sometimes it's also something that's giving us knowledge about ourselves, and we can learn about ourselves even in these difficult moments. So it's not all in vain. It's not useless moments. We can make the choice to use it. And so I'm going to really talk about my experience that I had the other day that really caused this, when me have an insight on this shift, and I want to share that with you. And I'm probably going to walk a little bit and walk some, sit some. I woke up one morning feeling good, started my day out well. And by the end of that day, I was definitely feeling down, and I wanted to think about what happened. And so there were 3 different events that happened, and these may not be the specific events that you've had happen in your life, but there is insight that I think anyone can apply to their life. So I had gone out with a colleague, got invited to go out with them. And so that day, leading up to it, I had been looking forward to going out with this colleague. And so we went out, we had a bite to eat. The time was good conversation, nothing in depth, but it was decent conversation. And this person didn't do anything in particular. But when I left the encounter, the first thing that I recognized was how I felt there was a feeling of emptiness that I noticed creep in as I was walking to my car. And I enough so that I noticed it, didn't think much more about it. But in my insight and looking back, what I want to share is that we do have to be mindful of the energy that is around us. And this is not to blame this person for anything. Now, sometimes there are people who are in your space who are energy vampires, and they're sucking your energy because they are either, they might have low shade towards you and, try to, put you down in ways that are subtle, or they may be someone who requires all of your energy and they want to take and take and take from you, but they don't reciprocate and give anything back. So there are situations where people are very toxic, and their whole goal is to try to break you down. So it is important to recognize those things too. But the other part of this I want to recognize is that every encounter that you come into where you notice maybe a shift in your energy isn't the blame of the other person. Sometimes we also have to think about what it is that we are bringing to the situation too, or what is it that we are expecting from those connections. So one thing that when I sat and I really thought about it, I had history with this person, and when I really sat and thought about it, there were some issues with trust that I had with them. Never addressed it with them. They have no clue about that. But I recognized that there are some issues with trust. So knowing that this person is not a bad person, but they're not one of my closest people, that I would say. And so when you are in connection with people like this, I'm gonna try to switch when you are in connection with people like this, what is it that you're coming into the encounter expecting? I think for me, I am very open and transparent, and I love connecting with people, especially intimately in these ways. So I know that I probably went into the situation, I went into the situation, as I would with anyone who I completely trust and just have deep conversations with, and, also look for, insight from them. Not that there was anything real specific I was looking for from them, but I will say that it's important to recognize that every encounter you have, that's not the type of relationship. And it's important to recognize that every relationship isn't that type of relationship, so that you don't go into those encounters expecting something and then leaving it feeling like you didn't receive something. So, I say this to say that every relationship that you have that isn't the most in-depth, isn't your closest person, doesn't mean that you have to always abandon the relationships. Because sometimes there's nothing unhealthy going on, but it is also our expectation on what we're wanting to receive from a relationship and encounter. And so if you know that you're in connection with people, or going to connect with people who are not necessarily your person, or like your closest connections, then it can change the awareness you have when you go into those connections. So then you're not left feeling disappointed or left feeling like you didn't receive. You're also mindful of how much you're giving as well, because everyone who's not completely aligned with you, they're not going to be receptive of what it is that you would want to share, because it's not their they don't vibe with that, and that's okay. We also have to be, recognize that the goal shouldn't be to have everyone vibe with how we see things, how we do things. Sometimes you can go into connection just with your high energy, and you can be giving the gift of a smile, a gift of presence, a gift of, just connection, because connection is important. By the way, everything that I learned within this whole day had to do with connection, and connection is a very important lifestyle factor that impacts our mood, our mental health. So all of the lessons I learned related to connection. Connection is important to me. I think connection is important to many of us, even if we don't have an awareness of it. It may be the types of connections, but we are all impacted by connections or the lack of them. And so that would be the first thing, would be recognizing the energy that you're around and adjust based on that. Some energies you adjust by ending those relationships because they can be very toxic, but some you just come into it with an awareness, and you know what your expectation is in those connections. So that was one lesson. So that day that happened, also I had another encounter with a professional who I was in that space seeking their leadership, their guidance. And I remember in that encounter, they were speaking for me. So I was explaining some things to them, and they were speaking for me and assuming what it was that I needed, assuming what it was that would be helpful for me or helpful toward me. And in that moment, I did speak up on those matters to some degree, but not everything, because then it just would have been a back and forth. But what I recognized in that is that I have my own sense of past traumas, and one of them was where I didn't use my voice. And so it is really important to me that I use my voice and not allow people to speak for me, and to speak for what I want, because I think whenever we don't do that, we suffocate the truest part of us more. Our soul is here to expand, and when we allow, what we've experienced in this physical experience to suffocate or try to disconnect or turn away from that, then we always betray ourselves. So that's why our voice is so important. And so I noticed that, there were some things that went on unsaid. I noticed that, this person was trying to speak for me and for what was best for me without checking in with me. And I also noticed that when I did speak toward what was important to me, that I could see the level of discomfort that this person felt from that. And what I want to share with you in relationship to that is, it is important to use your voice, and I'm going to equivalent this to speaking your truth, and to speak your truth and not be concerned if someone's uncomfortable with your truth. There are people who will be uncomfortable with your truth because they haven't grown yet to just be able to understand that people have different truths, and it's okay. We can never all be on this earth thinking exactly the same, and we shouldn't. We should be diverse, because someone else's truth can have some revelation for you. Your truth can have revelation for someone else. It doesn't mean that their truth now becomes your truth, but someone else's truth can help you have an awareness. Your truth can help someone else have an awareness, which can be helpful, regardless of if they align with that truth or not. The understanding and the respect of someone else's truth is important. So the respect of your own truth is important. And the first important thing is that you respect your truth, so that when you respect your truth, then you speak it. You know what I mean? And you're not afraid to speak it, or even if you are afraid to speak it, the importance of speaking it anyway. And you allow other people to do with it what they will. That's the only thing that you can really do. Well, it's not the only thing you can really do. What we tend to do and what harms us is when we don't speak our truth, and then we're suffocated. Or if we get too concerned with people not liking our truth, or they're being uncomfortable with our truth, and then we become uncomfortable. And all of these things equal shrinking. And we're not here to shrink. Many times, I think most people in the world do shrink, because we're going off of this faulted paradigm of looking at everything outwardly. That means being concerned with everything outside of you, including the thoughts, the opinions, the views that other people have that might not look the same as your views. But when we go to this internal paradigm, the paradigm of spirit, then we understand that it is very important. It is essential for our expansion to be able to speak our truth and be comfortable with speaking our truth, or learn to be on the path of growing in comfort of speaking your truth. So that would be the second thing is not allowing people to speak for you, not losing your voice. And then when you do use your voice, congratulations for doing that. Don't get distracted by people's discomfort, because it's coming. What happens, and I had spoken the month of April about people pleasers. And when it comes to people pleasing, often you don't speak your truth because there's a fear of all of the reactions. But we're never going to be able to appease everyone. So either we're going to choose to please the people outside of us as the initial motivator, or we're going to look at pleasing ourselves. And you'll be surprised how many people come along who actually align. This is how you get the true people in your life. You have to speak truthfully, so the people who think like you can find you and you all can connect. But when we're not speaking truthfully, we have all of these people who don't line up all around us, all different types of people who don't align with us, because we're not even speaking our truth. And so we get people who speak like what we try to act like we might speak with, or what we tolerate, you know what I mean? Or what we, what we fool ourselves to think is okay, and even though it absolutely doesn't align. So, all of these things can contribute to you shrinking. It can contribute to an energy shift that causes you to be in a place where you don't feel so happy, because you're not around the people who who mirror you or who edify you because you all relate to each other. It's nothing wrong with having people in the world that are different, but it's also important to have the people who get you. So you sure, depression, sadness can come along. We're gonna say sadness. Sadness can come along because it starts there. Anxiety and worry can come along when you're around people who you're not too comfortable with, because deep down they really wouldn't agree with how you really think and how you really feel. But why are these people then in your closest circle? So that's number 2. Number 3 is the last thing that happened was I was in an encounter in a business opportunity to connect with someone, and they decided not to work with me. It was mainly because of my systems were not acting right. But regardless of that, the fact that they decided not to work with me was truly a trigger to work that I am working on in myself. And so many people have everyone has their past that they work through, the foundations that impact how they feel, how they move through life, how they see themselves, how they see others, how they see the world, based on those painful experiences that they've had. And so when we're not addressing those, when we're not healing those things, it's very easy for them to trigger us. Or even when we are healing it, you're in that process, you can recognize when something triggers you. Because I've definitely been doing healing work, but that encounter when this person decided not to work with me really triggered this thing of rejection, this thing of not being good enough, not being valuable, going down into all of that. And when I was doing some of my own healing work that I'm working on for this month, it really tied very deeply to some specific experiences I had in my youth that really I know are a large part of the roots of where that would even come from. And so what I would say to you in relationship to this is that recognizing that when there are things going on in us that we're not healing, it's going to be very easy to be triggered when we're out amongst people, or even just in our day-to-day life, different things that can remind you of that pain that's not being addressed. What I'll say is the great thing about me doing this work of healing in my life is that I was able to really sit and have an awareness of how my energy shifted in a day, not even in 24 hours. And when you're doing healing work, you are able to recognize shifts that come up a bit easier because you're not as deep in the pain, because you are working on it. And so you're still experiencing some of the pain possibly, but you're not as deep in it as you were when you didn't even have an awareness, that you didn't even address the pain that you're experiencing. And so I do think that was a great advantage, to be able to recognize this shift, and then to be able to ask myself, what emotional shift happened? When did I first remember it in this particular circumstance? And then to dissect all of it, so recognizing that unhealed pain is going to trigger you when you're with people, your thoughts that come up, things that happen in the world. These things will trigger you much easier when you're not healing. But even when you are healing, you're in that process, you can be triggered. But the beautiful thing about it is that you can have that awareness, and then you can start to go back and work on those things. There's just no such thing as I really don't think that there's such thing as being able to just like avoid the pain. The pain follows you. The pain is kind of like in you until you address it to move it out. And it is something that we don't have to run from, because the beauty in moving through pain is you recognize that it doesn't have a chokehold on you like maybe it once did, and at some point it may not have any hold on you. It may not have anything. It'll be a memory you recall, a lesson that you had. But I know from life experience that when you don't address the pain that we try to stuff down in us, we keep getting these lessons over and over and over again in this life. And we don't want to take it beyond this life. We want to deal with it in this life. So understanding that there's always cycles, and we can have the cycle of joy in our cycle, if we allow ourselves to really deal with this pain that comes up. And we don't have to run from it when we know that the pain actually is information that we can use. And when we use it, then we can apply it to our life, what we've learned. Our biggest homework is the pain that we've experienced in this life. The joys too, the joys are great too. I think we can also underestimate, really looking at the joy that we've experienced, but the pain is the thing we run from. The pain is the thing we try to medicate in all different types of ways, but that's not going to solve the issue. And so that's what I want to share with you today. Let me know in the comments if any of these resonate. If they do, I want you to just let me know, was it 1, 2, or 3 that really spoke to you? And I also would like to ask you to like this video, to share this video, to subscribe to this channel so that I can get more people to come to this channel to benefit from the teaching and the healing that is possible. My name is Crystal Turner. I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner who's going holistic because I know to be whole is to be healed. I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.